Hello and welcome to another episode of Black Table Talk. Today's episode is a very special one, as it is the 10th episode and one that is very near and dear to my heart, for we will talk about reparations today. We have a very, very special guest as well. Our guest today is a very accomplished individual. He is a radio host and podcast host, a mentor, teacher, a martial arts instructor and grandmaster and life coach, and someone I consider a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming Dr. Paul William Dyer. Welcome to the show, Dr. Dyer.
How you doing, Mr. Duke? How you doing?
Great. Thank you for being a guest today, and thank you for having me as a guest on your show. I really enjoyed that, and we had a chance to talk a little bit about reparations there, so we just kind of going to pick up on the conversation here and start with, give me some of your thoughts on reparations.
First I want to say thank you, Mr. Duke, David, for having me on Black Table Talk, because it's about a conversation I believe we all need to have. And most of the conversation that black people have, it's not very in-depth, it's very superficial. And they don't get down to the nitty-gritties of the things that's bothering them and things that can heal them. So that's one of the things I kind of agree on, the things that I do on Bridges Live and the things you're doing on Black Table Talk. So when it comes to reparations, one of the things that we have to understand is how we were affected. Now, most people understand the effect of historical information. Now, I've been studying, I have three PhDs, and I have 3 masters, and it's not just about education, but how you're affected by the information. There's a difference. It's not just about education, it's how you're affected by the information. Now, when we talk about reparations, what do we really mean? We're talking about something that is it owed, or is it something that we deserve? Because if someone owes you something, that means you didn't earn it or deserve it. So what have we done for reparations? What have we been worked for that we need compensation for? See, that's the different compensation. And that's even different from what Martin Luther King was talking about. We have done a lot for this country that we were not paid for. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a payment. We're not talking about an old payment, like someone, hey, let me just give you a handout. The work has already been done. So if people can wrap their heads around that, wrap their brains around the work that has been done by Black America in the United States, things that were built, things that were established, you know what I mean? There are banks today, Citibank, Bank of America, that was trading in slaves, that's how they got their start on their banking industry. So if they never traded in slaves, would they have ever earned the money to start their banks? The answer is no.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Dyer. I'm with you 100%. A lot of black people are of the mind, and they have been programmed to believe that reparations would be some type of handout, and so they object to getting any type of reparation, or they want to see it in the form of giving some type of organization money to do things in the community and that type of thing. But you're absolutely right. We are being compensated, or need to be compensated, for the free labor, for the murder of millions of black people. It's estimated that some 65 to 75 million black Africans were killed during the slave trade, were murdered during the slave trade, not to mention all those that have been murdered since by police and others. We know that Black Wall Street and Rosewood, these were areas where black communities thrived and built an economic floor from which to stand upon. And what happened there? Whites went in and destroyed, and that's where the original looting and rioting came from. They went into black neighborhoods and looted and rioted and stole their property and ran folks out. So you are absolutely right. This is compensation that is owed to us. They're not giving us anything. In fact, they could not pay us for the atrocities and the work that we've done. We built this country. So, we're entitled to our fair share. And there's no amount that could suffice for what has happened to us. But we can come to a settlement agreement. And I hadn't did the math, Dr. Dyer.
What is the math that you come up with?
I said I hadn't did the math, but I'm glad that Mr. Robert Johnson, the former owner of BET,
yes,
and I posted on my Facebook today. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but if not, I'll make sure you get it. He has a big idea for reparations where he's pretty much mapped it out, and I'm in full agreement with, and I've been pushing for this. I have a petition that I've been floating around trying to get signed to take America before the United Nations on charges of crimes against humanity. But back to Mr. Johnson's idea is to, over a 30-year period, there's 40 million some odd black people in America. Over a 30-year period, we could receive reparations in the form through taxes, and of which we will also be paying taxes as well. And he's broken it down to even to the point where it would cost taxpayers about $8 a day to do this for 30 years, that each one of us, the 40 million that are here in America today, that are descendants of slaves, could receive from $10,000 to $11,000 per year in reparations, which I think is a fair and a nominal fee and a good way of going about it. So we would be looking at, let's say, a family of four, the mother, father, and two kids, receiving basically at income tax time every year $44,000. That is doable, especially now that we've seen that they can come up with $2.5 trillion to give as a stimulus package to citizens for COVID-19. They've kind of opened the Pandora's box. If they can do that for normal, everyday citizens, many of which have not even been affected by COVID-19, they can certainly give us reparations.
One of the things I could see, the only drawback that would be, and it maybe has nothing to do with being reparations, but more of like what happens with people who have child support or an illegal issue that won't get that money? So it would never get to them. So I wonder if there's a way, because if I look at reparations, I look at the things like in Alaska when people get a check because they're a citizen. It's not taxable. It's not able to be collected by a bill, but it is taxable.
Okay.
So like if a person who owed child support, if you owe child support and you get a refund back in your taxes, the state takes your money that you owe child support of. So that's fine because you need to pay the bill you need to pay. You need to pay back and own up for your child and children that maybe you couldn't pay at a certain time in your life and now you can. So I get how that works. So I wondered, would that affect that reason at all?
But I would think that would also give those individuals, the black men especially, who owe a lot of child support, many of which have been incarcerated, some of which unfairly incarcerated, that would actually give them a leg up, because
it would.
For those that may owe $50,000, that may be in arrears of $50,000 or whatever, then that money would be taken for the first 5 years.
Correct, and to be paid up.
Right, and then, so therefore that obligation will be met, and then they can have start on their own road to recovery, so to speak.
I like the idea. The more you write, the more as it comes in and as it filters through my head, and you're looking, it's just, as it says, it's only $11,000 for 40 million some odd blacks in the United States that we get it at tax time once a year. I don't see anything wrong with that. But, one of my ideas of reparations I had thought, and it's actually, Robert Johnson's is actually better than mine, because a lot of systemic reasons, meaning systems, that was held against blacks, it's not able to get an operation held up, right? So a loan in a bank to start your own business, or loan to own your own house, a loan, and I'm not talking about, so this is a lot different than just giving someone a check and say, do what you will with it. This is absolutely a Robert Johnson idea of BET. It's a better idea. Because Martin Luther King was working on reparations right before he was killed, right? And one of the things that he talked about reparation was a debt that was owed. And they were getting into loan agreements of owning a home or a business where you didn't have to pay any taxes or startup fees.
And that's where Mr. Johnson has done the homework, because most people's most prized asset is their home.
Yes.
And so he has done the research with regards to the wealth of the average family. The average white family wealth is at somewhere around $350,000 when you look at their possessions, homes, and things of that nature. Whereas for black people, on average, is about $30,000 in net worth. So he devised this to try to compensate, because we will never be able to sit at the table, so to speak, and have our just due and our fair share, as long as we're the economic gap is ever widening too. It's getting bigger. It's always growing in favor of white people. So the only way we can ever catch up, or the only way we can ever accumulate wealth, is we need what is owed to us. We need them to pay us for those years of unpaid labor, and for the torture, and for the torment, and the all the atrocities that they bestowed upon our people.
One of the things that is disturbing to the black community is a lot of blacks are economically illiterate. So they waste money. They're more wasteful than they are watchful. And we kind of think that, that's type of an education that they're not getting. But there's so many resources out here, black resources out here, that's able to teach people how to be financially self-sufficient in their means, and they're not. They're so wasteful. So we got to correct a lot. I mean, getting reparation does not fix our problems that we have internally. The post-traumatic slave disorder, the post-traumatic trauma that we have been created upon just by being black in America. But there's still a lot of things that we have to say and take responsible for, right? And if we don't take responsibility of, one, stopping black-on-black crime, right? We got to stop that. We got to be just as angry as black-on-black crime we are with police brutality. We have to be just as angry as our kids going to prison as then us spending money that we don't have. You know what I mean? So we have to, once our black community collectively say we will own up to our problems, I don't think there should be an issue with getting reparations from the United States. But I think the United States holds over our heads the things that we need to fix ourselves. And that's where we get stuck.
And I think it's a lot like the Jewish people. They received reparations after the Holocaust, and they invested their money, and they built a legacy for their children. Mm-hmm. And I think we could do much the same. But we have to have an economic floor to stand on. And you're right. Dr. Martin Luther King was speaking of these things before he was assassinated. He was really having a kind of a turnaround moment, because he realized that in asking for the right to vote and for integration, to be able to shop in white stores and eat in restaurants and go places and do the things that we wanted to do at that time, and we got those things. They passed the law, and we got those things. I think he realized that he could have gotten reparations, and should have gotten reparations. That's one of the things they should have been asking for. But they were seeking equality. And I think he realized that that might not ever be the case. You know, we may not ever see eye to eye as far as equity is concerned.
You know, I'm not sure we were looking for eye to eye or we were looking for our own. And what I mean by that, and I think maybe that's just a twist in words or maybe it's just a hyperbole, but what I'm saying is that we don't need to see as equal as they are. We need to see equal as who we are. And a lot of issues we also have is that we don't know who we are. We don't know what we are about or what we need to be.
And you and I, in our discussion on your show, we touched on that as well. I think it's part of that package that Mr. Johnson, the idea he put forward. I think we should receive mental health care for a lifetime.
Yes.
You know, as part of that package, you know. Because that is a problem. That's a real issue, is mental health. You spoke about how we have no financial education, many of our people. Well, a lot of our people are suffering from mental challenges as well, you know.
And we can fix that. And we can fix that. We just got to own up to it.
And it's going to take economics to do that. That's why I'm in full agreement, and I've been pushing this narrative for quite some time now and trying to get it out through the social media outlets and different things, because it needs to be on the table. We need to be having this discussion about reparations. It needs to be in the halls of Congress and, you know, where the movers and shakers are, everywhere we're having these conversations, it needs to be part of the conversation, because I'm at a point, Dr. Dyer, I really feel it's now or never. You know, we're at that turning point. If we don't take advantage of it, we miss the opportunity during the civil rights movement. I don't think we can afford to miss another opportunity and wait another 50, 60, 70 years to try to bring it up again.
So let me ask you this, and it kind of brings up a point in my head is, I believe it needs to happen as this movement is moving forward. I agree.
I'm getting a little echo.
I'm sorry about that. I had to switch it to a different area, but let me see if I can kill this echo. One is, like, when we talk about financial issues and health issues, what is some of the things that we can fix before we get what we are asking for?
I don't think that's possible. I think it's got to be a and or. I think it's got to be simultaneous. We've got to get the reparation package and work on those things at the same time. Because again, it comes back to economics. Even Martin Luther King knew that it was an economic situation. He talked about how even when we were being denied 40 acres and a mule, which was the foundation to give us an economic floor to stand on, so that we wouldn't be in bondage anymore. Because he knew if we didn't have, Abraham Lincoln knew when he freed the slaves, if they didn't have an economic leg to stand on, that they would always be in bondage. Hence came the 40 acres and a mule. But Martin Luther King talked about how when that was taken away in the 1800s, at that very same time, they were undergirding white immigrants that were coming to this country with reparations in the form of 150 acres of land, and they were setting up land colleges that were teaching them how to farm and be successful. And these are the same immigrants that stand up now against black folks and say, well, my family came in with nothing, and you can do it if we did it, we can. But that's not really the case. They were undergirded by the government. They were given land and resources. So, you know, you have to have the resources in order to tackle the problems that we have in our neighborhoods and in our, you know, communities.
One of the things, you know, this is such a great asset of Black Table Talk that we got to keep saying, that we got to keep beating this mental drum, this verbal drum, this spiritual drum, that we are We are people, and we got to stop thinking, oh, we can get over everything. We need to stop thinking that we can be so resilient to get over and just be happy. That's the other thing. You know, with reparations, we have the ability and we have the opportunity right now with this movement to learn how to be free. That's the other thing. We've never learned how to be free.
You are absolutely right. And we have not realized that we've always had the power within ourselves to be free. We don't have to look to white people for our freedom. We've always had the power. Even the slaves, I think some of them came to realize that freedom was not an outside thing, it's an inside job. Mm-hmm. You know? And so we have the ability to have freedom, but in the same token, we need economics in order to flourish, in order to do the things we need to do for our families, take care and provide a safe, protected area. Because if we receive this reparations package, it's going to be up to us, just like the Jews. It's no different. It's going to be up to us to take that money and build our own communities. It's been done before with Black Wall Street, Rosewood, all of these communities, black communities that white people went in and destroyed. But if they could do it then, certainly we can do it now, and the onus would be on us after we receive reparations. Then white folks can turn around 30 years later and say, hey, if you're still in the same situation you was in, you got nobody to blame but yourselves, you know, because if we don't take that compensation and use it wisely, and I think people like you and myself and others and people that we know would take that money, that compensation,
and make a difference,
and start using it effectively to turn things around, where we could have our own communities, our own police stations and our neighborhoods where we hire peace officers from our own community to patrol the community, to take care, to protect and serve the community. You know, we can, just like the Jewish people have done, they've done exactly that.
They have.
You know?
And no one says anything about them. They have their own police stations, their own fire departments, they have their own hospitals, their own schools, and no one says anything. And even the Muslim communities are doing it with themselves. But no, the black people, if they do it, it seems awful evil and bad.
And let me tell you something else, Doctor. Here in California, Southern California, the city council in Riverside and also in San Bernardino just recently, and this is also in the news on social media, have declared racism as a public health crisis. So that, you know, this is what I mean by this is the time.
This is the time.
Is now. The place is now. Not to mention we've got all of these other countries who are protesting because they know what the United States has done to black folks, and they also know the United States has done a lot of stuff to a lot of other countries too. You know, they know that the whole Iraq war was a farce. They know they didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. They know Saddam Hussein, the justification was he was killing his own people and all this kind of stuff. That was just a justification for them to go in there and take the oil. People are not stupid. I mean, they know that the United States has been wielding a big stick and going around and beating up on folks and taking what they want and doing what they want. And now it's time to take them before the United Nations and put them on trial, you know, because all of the Sierra Leone, South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Korea, all of these nations have been brought before the United Nations for crimes against humanity and found guilty for rape and kidnapping, torture, all of the United Nations list of atrocities for genocide. And all of those things that are listed, the United States has committed every single one of those acts against African Americans and others, but never are they mentioned in that list that I just gave you of nations that have been brought before the United Nations on charges of human rights abuses.
Well, I've worked with the United Nations and here in New York, and things have been brought up and things have talked about, and I've talked to what you call the number one prosecutor for United Nations, and there are things that the United States has had to answer to under a different president, and I think now because the way this 45 president walked away from the United Nations, I think now it's time for them to bring charges.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. And the one thing that I'm a little bit disappointed about, and I love our President Barack Obama, but one of the reasons all of these former presidents, these white men, have never publicly and formally apologized for slavery is because it would be an admission of guilt.
Correct.
If you're in a court situation and you admit to guilt, then you also open yourself up for a civil suit, just like O.J. Simpson. Then the families or the people are able to get civil damages, and that's why I believe that they've never formally apologized for slavery, because they don't want to open that reparation door.
They can't.
But I'm disappointed that Obama didn't do that, because Obama could have come out, even though he was black.
Well,
they would have ridiculed him. He could have came out and publicly apologized.
Well, the main thing is probably, even if as a president, you're more than just who you are. So I think even if he wanted to, I think legally as the United States, he just probably couldn't. And so if he could just explain that to people, because I don't think most people understand, just because you're president doesn't mean you can do anything you want on your personal agenda. Unlike what 45 is doing, he does a lot of things on his personal agenda, and no one's holding him to the fire. At least not the people's holding him to the fire. But we have an opportunity when it comes to reparations and getting things that we deserve, not things owed, things that we deserve, that we need to, the only way to take it back is to exercise the rights we have now, and that is to vote, right? Exercise our abilities now, and that is to learn and educate, to be informed. Exercise the mental capacity to understand that you're probably traumatized and you need to get the mental health you deserve. There's a lot of things we need to do for ourselves in our communities, supporting ourselves, supporting black-owned businesses, and stop tearing each other down and saying you're not black enough and you're not this enough and that ain't black enough. We got to stop that slave mentality talk towards each other, and the only way we can do that is to understand who we are, what we are, and where we came from.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Even people like Candace Owens and these black folks that are out there speaking negatively about us as black people, we have to embrace them too. We have to agree to disagree and still love them. And we may have to love them from a distance, but we still have to love them and accept them, because we can't afford to be fighting against each other right now. This is a time we have to come together. That Riverside City Council came to the determination that the strongest predictor of health is race. And so reducing racial health disparity requires acknowledging the effects structural racism has on health status.
Yes, and it does. And
working toward transformative change. And that's what they're doing. And they had, now check this out, they had a unanimous vote after a 9.5 hours meeting, council meeting. So, everything is working in our favor right now. That's why I say we can't afford to let this time pass. This is a crucial time. This is going to be a time, they're going to write books about the year 2020. They're going to write books about this decade from 2020 to 2030. It's going to be a decade like no other, and we're already witnessing it just in this first year, so we can't afford to sit back. We got to get on the bandwagon as black people. We have the technology in this next decade is going to grow exponentially, and we can't afford to get left behind. And that's why we need this reparations as well. We need to be not only tech savvy and get on that wagon, but we also need to be economically savvy and able to keep up with the trends and what's going on in the world, you know.
Well, Mr. Duke, I tell you, it's people like you, and I know I try to do the best I can, and we have other people out there with black intelligence and black communication, and we have some information that is flowing out here. We just need to tap into our people so they can start listening, learning, and living. Listening, learning, and living. Stop thinking you need to survive something. Stop thinking that you don't deserve something. Know who you are. Believe in who you can be. And this is what we're trying to teach you here on Black Table Talk, on anything you listen to. Understand the power you have is inside of you. Stop looking for some other thing to come down and swoop you up and take you away. We have, and the only way we have is if we develop the we, and the only way we can develop the we is if you develop the internal we. Your internal self will then, we will collectively pull together as people. We can do it.
And how do we, before we, and I want to thank you for your time and thank you for being on the show today, but before we part, I want to ask you, how do we tackle the problem of, how do we get, especially this younger generation, how do we get individuals involved or get them to listen to shows like this or shows like yours, Black Coffee Conversation? Let me put that out there too. I want people to know that Dr. Dyer has a podcast, Black Coffee Conversation. And before we leave, I'll give you a chance to give people ways that they can contact you. But how do we get black people who are so into love and hip-hop and reality TV and what is the other one? Star something that they watch when they show these fights, that black people fighting each other in alleys and this kind of... How do we get these individuals involved where they would rather watch love and hip-hop than to listen to a show like the one we're on right now?
Well, I think we got to meet them where they're at. You know, I think we got to go to them. I think we waited on them like the prodigal son. I think we waited on them and we lost them. I think we missed the boat by going to the kids in the park, going to the kids, because there is no more youth centers, right? They destroyed the youth centers because they destroyed the communities. So we need to be going to these places where these kids are. And then, of course, the social media, what we're doing right now, we need to just plug into where they are and hopefully they catch on. Because this young generation, they're listening. And you can see they're out here doing some action. So when I'm out here protesting, I'm talking to these young people. And they are very hot and heavy, and they're informed. Now, you give them the card, you say, let's rap and talk and let's do our thing. But I think we got to meet them. We got to go to them. We can't wait on them anymore.
I agree. We definitely have to do a better job of reaching out to our youth because in a lot of ways we've lost that fight. And we got to regain the fortitude to get back in the fight again and get back engaged with them because we, as you stated so eloquently, we've kind of let go. You know, we've waited, like you said, we've been waiting for them like the prodigal son. Now we need to go out and meet them. So I'm in agreement with you 100%. And again, thank you very much. Can you give us some of the ways we can get in contact with you? Absolutely.
You can always reach me on drpaulholisticscience.com. And you can get all of my information on there. So it's DRPAUL holisticscience.com, drpaulholisticscience.com. Or you can also watch some of my Black Coffee Conversation on my YouTube channel. It's Dr. Paul Dyer Grandmaster, and that's Dr. Paul Dyer Grandmaster, and you can catch all my podcast shows on there. And if you have any questions for me, please email me at drpaulwdyer@gmail.com. So, because we're here to learn, and we're here to share, and we're here to love. And the only way to do that is to know that I don't know everything. We don't know everything. But together we are stronger. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Dyer. Thank you for being a mentor, for being an instructor, for being a role model for me as well as for many others. Thank you for being on this 10th episode. You made it truly special. Thank you for your comments, and I really hope that this reparation thing will gravitate, that people will take hold to it, and it'll become a topic of conversation.
So I'm going to suggest that we talk next month, you and I, on this show about reparations again, because we got to keep talking about it, otherwise the flame dies out.
All right, that's the deal. We'll definitely do that, and we'll talk on Saturday with regards to what we were talking about earlier. Maybe we can do a video conference and bring some others in on it as well.
All right, sir. God bless, man, my brother.
Much. God bless. Much love always, forever, family.
Family.
Peace.